This is actually my first year in Senate. I serve as a senator at large and serve as a member of the University Life Commission. Before this election cycle, I was not involved at Student Senate at all. That's actually not incredibly true now that I think about it. I was the very first PR director that Student Senate ever had. I served under Gabby Baca, and that was my sophomore year. I was really overly involved. I was on 2 executive boards of 2 major university organizations, and so I didn't get to dedicate as much time to Student Senate as I wanted to, and then my junior year I was honestly too busy for Student Senate for it to even be on my radar. And then I met the folks who were running towards the end of my junior year, and they asked me to be a senator at large, and I jumped on the opportunity to get involved. I guess like my biggest thing with being a senator at large is that you really get as much flexibility with the position as you want. You serve every single student from the undergraduate to the PhD level, and so the issues that you decide to work on really depend on what you're passionate about. My greatest accomplishment thus far has been being involved on the Baker Food Pantry Standing Committee. I represent Student Senate on that body, and we've really expanded the food pantry to address food insecurity on campus. My background and how I was raised, food insecurity was a thing that I often confronted. And so getting the chance to work on this issue with university administration and really find ways to make sure that people's needs are met has been one of my greatest accomplishments. Know if I would say there's difficulty. It's just like a balancing act. It's really important that you recognize that they have a job and a duty to serve the university overall, and that your requests are probably one of many they received that day, and you need to understand the reality that sometimes something that seems important to you and your group of friends and students is not necessarily something that is important to them. And it's not that it's not down the line of things that are important to them. It's just like maybe that day or that month they have this #1 issue that is important to students and they have to address it, and they don't always have the time to sit down and talk to you about things. I've been pretty lucky with my interaction with administration. They've always been willing to sit down and at least listen to me. But I do understand that other people haven't had great experiences, and I think it's just because they expect that in this leadership role on campus that all of our needs need to be addressed immediately because we're on Student Senate. And I think they need to realize that while it's a title and it's an important one, like it's to some people they have other things they need to focus on. I'm most proud of is that this body has chosen to be a little more political than I think bodies in the past have been. We have the really unique opportunity to be a body composed of differing opinions, but overall we understand that in order to continue thriving and living in a world that exists, sometimes you have to be progressive and you need to act on issues that are going to make that happen. Landon has never shied away from presenting a bill that confronts a very controversial topic, and while those conversations and discussions are sometimes a bit messy, they're really important to have because we're not just leaders in this student body. Realistically, some of us are going to go on and run for actual political office someday, and this is just a stepping stone for us, and we need to realize that blue books are not always an issue that's going to be important out there. Like, it's really going to come down to hard-hitting issues that aren't always fun to talk about. I think that my role in Senate is always going to exist. It's not really going to change. I think that the way that people use the position is going to change. I have never shied away from being a dissenting voice on Student Senate. I've never shied away from speaking about truth and reality in a body that often gets hyper-focused on specific things that in the scheme of things aren't that important. So while I think that someone's always going to be senator at large. I would argue that there's not always going to be a senator at large who makes an effort to get involved in as many things, but also, and like loves being an active member, but also takes the time to look at things more critically and take a step back and be like, why are we doing this when we could be focusing time and energy and resources on so many other things? My advice for people who come into my position or get involved in Student Senate at all is to really think about how you vote and really look at the things that are presented to you. It is so easy in general bodies when it is public voting to just go with the majority. It's so easy to not question things because leadership presents them and all of these sponsors align with them. It's so easy to get into this group mindset that, oh, if one person thinks it, then it must be right. You really need to think about if things matter, and you really need to think about how your vote's going to reflect that. There's been many times I've been honestly very disappointed in the body for not voting a specific way because it wasn't the right thing to do. So my advice would be it's okay to be the dissenting voice in the room, even if you're the only one.